Hello everybody. Welcome to the reading today, and welcome in if you haven't been here before, um, to all the new people as well. So this one is going to be a little different to how I normally do the readings. Like I said, this year is going to be, for me anyway, and this channel is going to be a mix-up of, the traditional 3 piles, pick a pile, get your reading, off you go. We're going to be, well, I'm going to be talking today about kind of like an earth transition or a decision that the collective have. And that's where I'm going to be talking about. I don't want to get too into it yet. I just want to do the, I guess, the etiquette of the start of this reading. And just say, if you want to just jump straight to the readings, I'll just quickly let you know before you skip everything, is that the readings are going to be talking to one path and another path. Now there's 1,000 billion different paths, right? But I'm going to be focusing on two very distinct paths that we're kind of splitting off into and making a decision on. So if you get to the pick a pile and it's like, what's this about? You've got some idea. One's going to be more, I guess if I blanket statement it, it's going to be more technological, and it's going to have like more of the AI kind of like ideas, maybe advancements. This is like looking way into the future, right? That kind of thing. And the other is going to be, I guess, more slower, community-based, bare feet on the ground, being in nature, being one with the nature. So neither are right or wrong. I've seen people see this as coming up in our future and say one is right and one is wrong. You all have free will and you should go by what you feel is right and what feels right to you and the people around you, right? Because just because there's like this idea of two paths doesn't mean exactly two. We've already kind of transitioned through the parts where we see this old idea and old and new earth. I feel like we've already transitioned to, the ending or the I don't want to say collapse, but it's just more like the reconfiguring, right? It's kind of like you see an old building, it doesn't have to always go down. You can kind of like leave the bones and just repurpose the stuff, get rid of the things that are rusted and old and repurpose. So I haven't really talked about this too much, but it's just been popping up way too often. And I can see that after the full moon and the eclipse, the full moon eclipse, and depending on which astrology system you go by, it could be whatever, but I'm going to just talk to the Western. It was in Virgo, and we were in the sun sign of Pisces. So there's like this clear division, right? They're not really divisive signs as in one is this and the other one's that, and they're the opposites. But on the wheel, right, on the, what do you call it, the cycle, they're on opposite ends. And for me personally, the sun being in Pisces, moon being in Virgo, my birth sign, sun sign is Virgo, and my moon sign is Pisces. So it kind of like is like the opposite of that. And I thought nothing of it. I thought nothing was going to happen. Everything it'd be just another day. But I had a lot of clarity, and I just started to clearly cut cords with a lot of people, ideas, and things that just no longer needed to resonate with. They're not serving me and my kind of idea or like life, right? Or just, and when I say serving, I don't mean they're like servants. I just mean like we're not really resonating, and vice versa. I'm not really serving their needs. So we've kind of played out a particular role that we needed for each other in this life, and now it's time to separate. And so it was a very clean cut without too much drama or anything, and it felt good. And there was like certain other things that I was getting rid of and disposing, right? Getting out of, pulling out my social medias out of certain places, closing things down, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to to preface that before we get straight into it. But I'm assuming if you've already wanted to skip ahead, feel free. Down in the description below, you can jump to the card readings. You'll know which one's what because I'll tell you. I'm still going to do a card pick because I feel like that's going to help direct the main focus of both ideals and what they mean to humanity and to us, which side we kind of pick. I've kind of always been on one side or the other, and now I've kind of flipped and gone, I feel like this is going to be what's right for me rather than what I just want to kind of like see what happens type thing. Now, I don't believe that by choosing one, the world goes back into hunter-gatherers or something like that, and the other goes into like sci-fi Star Wars or Star Trek or something like that, right? I don't see that as like the one way or the other. But I do feel like both will have a very clear distinction, while both will have advancements in technology. There's going to be a difference between the two. And while one's still going to have farming and agriculture and community-based things, there's going to be a very clear distinction between the two. So I just wanted to talk about that basically as to why I'm doing this reading and how it's kind of come through. It feels like it's been in the collective. A lot of people have been talking about it. I've kind of been feeling it as well before like I, watched a lot of things, which just helps me get clarity on, okay, so this is in the collective. This is like a choice coming up for a lot of us. And it's going to be, I guess, a conscious and subconscious type discussion. You should do a meditation with your higher self if you want to get more clarity. But we're really leaving things behind. Stuff that we used to focus on so heavily is starting to not be as important, right? Because we're starting to see things more globally instead of, what about me and this partner or ex or whatever? I'm still hurt from it, holding on to that. There's still going to be those things that you hold on to, but this is a really good time to start leaving it. If it's not in your reality right now, it doesn't need to be in your emotions or soul for the rest of this lifetime, right? So start doing the things that you need to do to move through that. We're not going to be really talking about that. If you're there, you might want to come back to this reading later. But if you're ready to like look into these, and I would say look at both if you really want to get like a full picture. While I might have an opinion for myself, I don't feel like it's right for me or anyone else to say this is the right path. You shouldn't go to the other path. If you feel like one's better than the other or either or either, pick what feels right to you. Also, there is construction next door. They're building a fence, so there might be some loud humming music because they're just blasting music and smashing stuff around. So, that could be what you hear as well in the background. All right, let's get into it. So what I want to kind of do first is talk to this first card, or the first pile is going to be the fast path, right? And fast doesn't mean better or worse. It just feels more fast. It's going to have more technology, maybe even future focus-wise, humans mixed with technology, getting kind of like barcodes and that kind of stuff within us. And almost like building a new reality in a way. If you've ever seen Ready Player One, is it? Something like that kind of idea, which will have like a lot of benefits and stuff too, right? Drawbacks and benefits, just as this side will, which will be pile 2, and that's going to be more of the connecting with Earth, maybe even like Earth healing through our own emotions and inner technology, let's say, instead of relying on the outer and merging with it. That's going to be where the slower path is. So, think about it, see which one, or if the cards really call to you to look at one, maybe it's going to help you to make the decision that's best for you. Okay, pile 1. So this will be the fast path. And pile 2, I'm not going to take any of those. There we go. All right, so I hope that makes sense. I'll try to think of a topic or thing that like makes sense, right? But this isn't about new or old Earth. This is kind of like we've selected new Earth, and now where do we want to head off? We can probably even go in the middle, right? Who knows? I'm not the the creator that decides all this. I'm just like a person who's reading on an inkling and a feeling of shifting times. So yeah, these will be the piles. So pile 1, the fast path, you have the angel, is it Iziel? With smoky quartz. This is heavenly mercy. So that'll be, oh, and angel number 444. This will be your pile 1 for the fast path. This is the more technological side. And for pile 2, you have the Ascended Master Kuan Yin and the Pearl with Divine Rebel. So here we go. These will be the two piles. Sorry, this one also is Crystal Master 333. So we've got 444, 333. All right, I'm just going to leave these here. Feel free to pick whichever one calls to you. If you want to go by the path that you feel you want to listen to, or you already know you're on that path, then feel free to pick which ones call you. Again, this one is the more quicker path, fast path, and this one's going to be the more slower path. So when I look into it, it's going to be like an overview, and I will be probably channeling some of the message through because I already have an opinion of what I want or what I'm going for, regardless of what comes out of this. This is just more of like an FYI to me, and also a message for you to take in and decide what feels right to you. But yeah, I will leave this with you, and I will see you in your reading. Welcome, pile number 1. So you chose the Heavenly Mercy card. Angel Azazel is an interesting one. It's the angel of faith, also not an angel of God's strength, which is kind of interesting because faith is already kind of like incorporated in a particular angel, and then God's strength is also incorporated in many angels. So it's kind of like a catch-all or like that kind of energy. When I tapped into the energy, I saw like energy of integration, and that's really pertinent kind of feeling towards where this path is kind of headed. And I feel like, while I don't fully believe, I mean, I have no idea, but I don't really foresee the future on the side being humans integrating with technology in the next like 5 or 10 years, right? This is something like very far down the track. Where AI is now compared to where it was has moved quite quickly and has been integrated into many things in, positive and negative ways, just as much as the internet has been used in the dark web, right? For like drugs, murder, all sorts of crazy stuff. But then look at us here, where we're able to communicate ideas and share knowledge on platforms like this, YouTube and such. So yeah, Angel Azazel coming through Smoky Quartz does feel like coming out of the clearing. You've like cleared some stuff. Not so much you, but like, this choice is kind of like clearing out a lot of what no longer needs to be held onto. And so this is like a new opportunity to speed up. Heavenly Mercy is an interesting way of putting it, because mercy is, you could see it different ways, but what I see just basically mercy is like, this is a reprieve, or this is an opportunity to like really let go or really make something of this path, right? Both sides are leading to the same road, I see. It's just like, which way do you get there? Do you get there through the highway, a busy highway, or do you go through the mountains kind of roads, or like a little bit off track, right, which may have a different environment, and could cause different things on both sides, right? Never know. But either way, we get to the same village or town or city or, place, national park, whatever. So Heavenly Mercy is interesting because it's like that angelic side of it, especially with the angel coming through, and mercy being like, this is a reprieve of some sort. Okay, so we'll get into it. I'm going to try to not talk too much on the cards straight away. I want to just get the cards and then we'll look at them as a whole. Make some space. These cards really wanted to come through for this particular reading. I may use different decks in both readings, so you know, they do feel like very different paths in that case if I am doing that. How we handle them and go through it is going to be completely up to us though. Both paths could be fine for us depending on how, you know, we interact with the energies of those paths. And both paths are going to have their ups and downs no matter what. We're humans, right? There's no way we're not going to be our human selves. All right, so this is the fast track path. You could equate it to, we're all going, you know, whether you're flying first class or coach, or you have to go through customs or anything like that in a plane, you're still getting to the same destination on the plane, and then to the same place once the plane lands. So it's kind of like that. See it as like a glimpse rather than this will dictate your whole entire future. See it as like an opportunity or a glimpse into these separate paths. Okay, I think I've kind of drilled that down enough. Let's have a look at the cards, part one. So you've got, in this way of influence, it says, create with your authentic self. It's interesting, this one's coming through for this path, in this way of influence, which is very kind of now, right? This is a decision now too. But while we're looking into the future, this is definitely the now. Like, this is based off the now. Try not to base your decisions off what your family think, of what your children think, of what your parents think, of what the government thinks, of what a particular leader thinks, or anything like that. This is, you know, create with your authentic self. This is going to be a decision by you, for you, regardless of where anyone else is going. If you make this based off fear, I would say you're going to pick the wrong path. Even if you would have picked that path anyway, you picked it for the wrong reasons. Or you picked it for reasons that are based on out of fear. So maybe I shouldn't say the wrong reasons, but fear-based reasons, right? You're doing things out of fear. It's like when we had a cyclone here, people were worried about food shortages, so they bought out food, bought out toilet paper, and it was unnecessary in my mind in some of the areas. Like, while you may have needed some of those and you get it, you don't need to store a year's worth if you're like, you know, if you don't need to, is basically what I'm trying to say. But anywho, in this way of influence, create with your authentic self. This is being true to you, making decisions that are based on what you want. So even though this path has like a whole lot of stuff to come up with it, you still have choice within it. You still decide whether you put the microchip inside you, right? Or you get a bionic arm, right? Or that kind of path. You still have free will. And how the path looks is going to look very different depending on the choices you start with now and continue going forward. But it feels like it's going to be a lot of potential, what do you call it? It's not manipulation. I mean, it is manipulation, but propaganda. There's going to be like this idea or that idea. It's going to be a very confusing time. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just like, you're going to have to trust in, you know, your faith, your God, your source energy, your intuition, and trust yourself and make decisions that are true and right to you, and really tap into that intuition, because intuition is going to be real important with this path. And each decision is going to be like a very key decision. So we've got coming together, and it is reversed. So this could talk to like certain connections and friendships and that kind of thing being reviewed, or like paths, right? You might start to like not connect with certain people, and you might start connecting with other people. Coming together though is a loving card. And when it's reversed, I don't feel like it's like separating. It's just like deciding where you want to be and feel within certain relationships and friendships, but really coming into your own self. So this feels like a lot of the external connection wise starts to come from more within, and like your own decisions, your own self, your own choices in your own way. That's how this one feels, but it feels like if it's coming from like love for self and others, it feels right. And we also have coming apart reversed. So there is this like reconnecting with self. It feels like this path has a lot of tower and tricky decisions to like make. I guess it is harder when it's like fast path. Yeah, I want the fast path. Okay, so you get to this toll booth, let's say, type thing, and you have 5 seconds to answer a question, like a multi-question kind of thing. It's like, is it A, B, or C? And I don't know, that kind of thing. Whereas if you go slow path, you have like a minute. That might feel better, but this is like quicker, but you just have like, you have to be on your toes, I feel like. Coming apart feels like things are going to break down. I don't think that's going to be news to either side. We'll see what happens on the other side, right? But there's things going to be coming down, and they're going to be coming down fast. So if you want the fast path, like big changes, things happening very, very, very quickly, and we have to be on our toes if we're going to go down this kind of like side. Because coming apart reverse doesn't, like I said, well, this one doesn't necessarily, coming together doesn't mean separating, and coming apart reverse doesn't mean coming together exactly. It's going to be both, and it's going to be in different connections. This feels like more relationships. This feels more like our society, our earth, and even ourselves. It's kind of like breaking down a lot of stuff, which is going to be very, very chaotic, I would say. Not in a bad way, but not necessarily in a good way, right? I'm not trying to sugarcoat. It's just like, it's not all like a negative thing, but it's not all great, because if you're dealing with something and then you get stuff on top of that, on top of that, on top of that, you might be able to deal with it, but then more keeps piling up. You're going to eventually just crumble. So this is going to be a place where there's lots of pieces to pick up around, I feel. And then we'll see, I guess. We'll have a look at what else is out here. You've got Hathor light codes with light immersion, full system upgrade, power recall. And that's what I feel like is the whole point of this path, is about authenticity and knowing oneself. So it's going to be a huge learning about and growing through understanding who you are, why you're here, what's your connection with self, source, whoever else pops into our reality, whatever else pops into our reality. That's where this is going to be. Full system upgrade. A full system upgrade, like when you're upgrading your PC, right? It takes a while, but then when you have to upgrade the graphics card and the hard, like all the other stuff, or you actually are pulling all that stuff out and putting new stuff back in, it takes a while to reboot. So while it's fast and quick, it's still going to take some time. There's no doubt about it. But that's the whole point. It's going to be a separation, splitting, connection, integrating. There's like this integration part feels real here because of the angel Azazel coming through with integration. Like there was something there with integration. I feel like that coming apart connection, and also we have to remove some of the stuff. So it might become a little bit like more cold at first, because the things that we felt were solid are shifting and shaking away. And so you might be alone in some parts. And I don't mean that in the sense of like there's no one around. It's just like you might feel isolated at points because it's moving so quickly. So that's why it might feel cold. But ultimately, the power recall is this is not your undoing. A star doesn't collapse just to be like broken and that. It like turns into a supernova, right? It's like for a supernova to like show off or to like explode, it's first the slow collapse of the star until it can't collapse anymore, and then it's done. So this is like a power recall. It's probably not the best way of putting it, but like this is power recall coming back to who you truly are through the process of making alterations and modifications to oneself and to one's environment. So if you're someone who really wants to control the narrative, this may be like a good path for you. But that doesn't mean you're going to have control. It's just going to test it. It feels more like it. Okay, you've got Chamber of the Violet Flame, Karmic Release, Radical Transformation. Yeah, this is gonna be, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, it's gonna be a bitch. It's gonna be like, it's gonna be a lot happening all at once. There's not too much to say about this. Karmic Release, it's a lot of transformation. You kind of, instead of going to the slower path for like self-help, right, might be going to a therapist and having that time and talking to, let's say it's the perfect therapist for you. And so this is like a slower track. The other part might be going to, not saying that this is necessarily ayahuasca, but like going to ayahuasca and facing your demons in the shadow realm, right? So it's like two ways that get the job done. One is much quicker. You get that done within a week or a month, but you also may cause like a lot of stress at that time because it's like traumatic, right? You're facing off against the inner demon, so to speak. And the other side, you're talking things out and slowly breaking things down. So this could be like a whole lot of shifting. But again, radical transformation's big. It's huge transformation. I'm one that loves transformation as well. But huge shifts, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know how this is going to look, obviously, because I can't see the future. I just knew this is something that's coming up as a decision. It's a choice. Okay, let's have a look at some tarot cards just to get the tea. Two of Cups. Oh, I love that. See, there is this idea of like breaking apart, coming together. It's like when we end a relationship or the relationship's ended from the other side, right? There's always going to be some kind of like sadness and that kind of thing, but we get to explore our lives, our connection with relationships, all that kind of stuff, and find new connections and that kind of thing. So there is this like coming together. This isn't this bad, scary way of doing things. We just learn through challenging transformation, and then we come out and we're much better for it. And that's when I think we're back on the path with the other path. But this is like a long road. So, take this with a grain of salt, I guess. Here we go. Nice and quick. We've got the Chariot, like I said, coming back together, right? These two different paths. There's this black and white kind of like path. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of movement and there's got to be a lot of change. So be prepared for it. The Page of Cups, I love that because it's got like this pig flying in the background. We could see things occurring that are not even something our child, like not our child, our younger self is what I mean, when we were a child. When we were a child could even imagine. So yeah, there's a lot of new information. Something could trigger this that's like, bam, here's the information and off we go as a collective. It seems fun. It just seems wild. That's all. We've got Justice. This does, again, feel like things coming down with the coming apart, even though it's reversed. It's just like things starting to, that we thought were up there coming down, but some of this path does feel like that even with, let's say everyone became equal, money became like even, I doubt that's ever going to happen, but just let's say everyone became equal, there's going to be like an illusion or something where the people that are in the high towers stay in the high towers, right? There's still this like higher businessy type class up there. I don't know why that needs to come through, but that's just how this Justice card feels. But in saying that, there's still a process of law and order type thing. It's an interesting one. We've got the King of Cups as well. So just because we're disconnecting from parts of our human self, not all of ourselves, right? There's still this way of connecting to source and to the environment and through nature. So just because one path is more slow doesn't mean, and more like back to basics type thing, does not mean that this path doesn't have that. You're still going to have abilities and certain aspects of our DNA waking up coming through here. So it does feel very good. And it also kind of feels like there's still this authority over the collective, and I don't know how that looks, but it's not what I would have expected from either side. But I guess that's still going to be a thing. There's still going to be upper rules and regulations, and still some shadowy things on both sides. Humans are still going to be humans, is basically it. Okay. And last, we've got the 8 of Pentacles coming through. This is kind of interesting because straight away it felt like you've got a month, like you've got a month to decide, basically. I don't think that's exactly what it means, but like, you know, as the days and the months go by, you'll start to see where you're going and where you're shifting to on this line. And I mean, once you've already even picked this line, there's still going to be month by month, take it month by month, take it as slowly as you can, even though this is the fast path. Because here the 8 of Pentacles is like mastery and work. You're going to have to be very detailed orientated with how you see this. That's where this card, I believe, falls into the Virgo kind of energy. You're going to want to make sure what you're putting into your body, what you're like focusing in on is clear, and you have all the information. Because there's going to be a lot of stuff happening, and when stuff gets shaky, right, there's always profiteers. There was horrible shit happening in World War II, right, in Europe, and there were profiteers from it. Whenever wars happen, companies like Raytheon earn huge amounts of money, like, because they just sell weapons and stuff like that, right? So all those kind of things are going to be still there. You're going to have to really read the fine print and look into the details. So, but it does feel like you still come through, you still get enamored and awed. There's still spirituality and faith in there in some way. There's still coupling connections, and how we connect with ourselves is still important. There's still a lot of like transformation, and like I said, so full system upgrade. This is a lot of transformations internally with us. I don't know how it's going to look, right? And even us here right now, we're not all going to go through every single thing that's going to be there. Some of us are older or younger or whatever. It's a long road. It's just like one that's clearly separates. And maybe you keep reincarnating on that path because that's where your soul has kind of like, you and your soul have kind of like anchored in. So the reincarnation process might still be something, if you believe in it or not, that you follow, that you keep going on that path, because there's certain soul learnings and growth there. Okay, I don't know if there's anything else to really say. I do want to read, I think I want to read a little bit of these two reversed. The coming apart and the coming together, come together. It's so interesting, it's those two and they're both reversed. So it says here, when the come together card is reversed, it's a sign that perhaps a love connection is unbalanced. Is intimacy being withheld from you, or are you withholding intimacy from another? Longing and yearning are often mistaken for love, when in fact they are signs of lack. Oh, that's such a good point, right? Longing and yearning are signs for lack of love, not so much for being in love. It's more like that I lack my self-love, or I lack love in my life, and that's why I'm longing. It's not so much always going to be the case, but it's a good point to consider. Perhaps you've been doing all the emotional work or pouring your water into an empty well, to the point that now you are also depleted. This is what happens. We break down so that we can rebuild. So it's going to be a kind of like death and rebirth kind of path for sure, in many different ways. I'm just going to end that one there and read the coming apart. All right, so reverse, it says the situation is unraveling and your best plans are leading you into a tricky maze. Your challenge is to separate out the elements that this puzzle Oh, hang on, start that again. Your challenge is to separate the elements of this puzzle to get a better perspective on what happened. You may have lingered too long in a place where you didn't belong anymore, seduced by a temporary situation. As you untangle yourself, it's important to maintain a sense of humor. Don't fret. You will learn something valuable that you'll need later when faced with more dangerous situations. Breathe and know that you are loved. So it is showing like a challenging path, right? Especially this card right next to this one, karmic release, radical change. You don't need to go to the violet flame for shits and giggles, right? You go there to release bonds, to release stuff that no longer serves. And you have to be honest and clear about it. So it does feel like a challenging path in the sense of transformation and change, but it's all leading to love, balance, information. It's just very different to the other path, which I'll do next. So anyway, hopefully that's helped you just get an idea of what this fast path really entails. It feels like it leads to a great place, but through a lot of transformation, a lot of relationships coming and going, or friendships coming and going, jobs coming and going, or just people's ideas being really present. There's a lot of like, what would you call it? First, what is it? Like main player syndrome type thing, like not necessarily who's on it, like yourself, but just a lot of people wanting to be heard, I guess, on that side, and opinions and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it looks like a challenge for sure, but definitely one where we still come together, we still are one with source, and we still find love, compassion, and care. So yeah, interesting one. Thank you for letting me read for you today, Fast Track. Feel free to watch the next video. If not, take care, and I'll see you next time. Hello, hello. Welcome to your reading pile 2. So this is the slow track. I do that in quotations because it's just an easy way to putting like super technological to more natural, right? Excuse me. All right, love this card. You've got the Ascended Master Kuan Yin. You know, she is the, I think it's called Bodhisattva, something like that, of the, and kind of like, I guess it's like, what do you call it? Buddhism style belief system. And the Pearl with Divine Rebel. So this is interesting. This is not going to be a path of what I initially thought, right? I thought it was kind of going back to basics, but this is not even going backwards. This is not going backwards. This is going forwards. It's this Divine Rebel kind of like re-sees how we think and feel about nature and the world. So there could be a lot more people kind of like, this path kind of feels like has a lot more people starting to stand up for you know, rights, liberties, and animals as well, and even kind of like more decisions on how we look at nature and deal with it, instead of being like very silo-minded. It's kind of reminding me of there's this group of people that create natural gardens or like forests and stuff, and so instead of being like, okay, I'm gonna grow peas here, so we clear the whole land, we just put peas in, right, and it's all peas. That's all is like traditional farming. This is kind of like working one with nature, and not to just like leave it and we'll come back. It's more like we're going to have these plants together, and it's almost like connecting with the environment, and being like, what kind of plants do you work well with? That kind of thing. Understandably, there's still going to be insects and bugs that are going to eat the plants, right? Which they may or may not want. But like, it's going to be, there's still this like balance. But this Divine Rebel is kind of like, even though this might feel like going with the flow, it's going to be an interesting path of standing in one's own sovereignty and making yourself heard as well. So we'll see how this actually unfolds with the whole reading, but it's definitely not what I thought. I thought it was kind of like, you know, going back in time. This doesn't feel like going back in time at all. Not in our historical kind of recorded time anyway. Maybe in a time that we haven't visited for such a long time that we have very little records of it. Okay. Just going to grab the oracle cards first, and then we'll get into the meteor stuff. But I just want to get all the cards out is what I'm trying to say. Eventually I'll get the words out. But yeah, these are going to be different cards from the other pile. So if you've come here without watching that one and you're called to, go check it out. It's got different cards, different messages. While this one's already feeling like very different from what I perceived. The first pile was very different from what I perceived as well. So you never know. And all these decisions are our choices, right? These aren't things that are getting created and done to us. This is like, well, we pick this path, and maybe we've picked paths in the past, and here we are in this lifetime, right? With what's happening in it. We've seen what happens. So, you know, it's a good insight to like how to make decisions in the future. I would feel like if you ever choose one path either way based off fear, that's going to be a challenge. That's going to be a lesson more so than what is true, sovereign, and, you know, authentic. Authenticity is going to continue to be very strong moving forward. And we can see how people are, how integrity plays out with the people that we see on news, how we see people in our family, how we see people at work, right? It's all coming very clear. Okay, so this path, you've got the the wounded child with healing trauma makes the world feel safer. Healing trauma makes the world feel safer. I did get an idea of this before, but I forgot. Now this card's reminded me. This is going to be a path of like deep emotions. So, you know, by doing that, it could be a very exhausting path in the sense of needing to work on the stuff that we hold deep within ourselves. And if we're already doing that, then this won't feel as exhausting, right? But if it's like people are resisting, and they've chosen this path because they're like, that path, I don't want to deal with all the stuff, so I'm just going to pick this one because it feels safer. It's still going to be challenging if you hold on to it longer and longer. You just kind of delay the big drop instead of being like, slowly and surely, we seed the garden. It's like, here's all the dirt, here's all the seeds, hurry up and plant them immediately, right? So you're going to have to deal with it straight away. So not as quick. You've got the owl with wisdom. I saw the owl and it felt like old wisdom, but this is the owl spirit. Wisdom and information. You can see here she is waiting, she's not rushing, she's making decisions and plans as they come through. So this is getting back into old techniques in a new way. We're still going to have technology. It's not turning the world backwards, right? This is a progress, but it's like humans and the animals and the plants and all that kind of stuff are going to be seen in a very different way is how it feels. So yeah, this feels interesting anyway. I've got the Spring Guardian, sorry, what is it? Spirit Guardian of Spring with activation. This is something I've seen in like folk music. I don't know. In New Zealand, where I grew up, we had folk music. We had traditional Māori music, which was kapa haka, and dance and like expression. And then we had folk music, which was, I guess, some various European stuff, or British stuff, whatever. But it's like you kind of like go around and you go weave in and out and create a pattern for fun, I guess. I don't know. But spring activation. This could be a sign that in spring, especially if you're in the northern hemisphere coming up to spring, right? Yeah. In the south, in the deep south, no. In the southern hemisphere, we're going to autumn. So the holidays always kind of look a bit wonky, right? We're looking at Easter and it's like the birth and life coming up and we have everything dying. And then Halloween is like flowers and everything's blooming and it's hot while we're wearing these stodgy costumes trying to like cool down. So it's kind of funny when you live and see that, but that's exactly what I'm feeling with here is we're going to see things from many different perspectives. We thought like, okay, this is how this place is always looking, you know, during these times. Things are going to start to shift. So it's still going to be pretty quick, I would say. This activation is like, this is still a fast path in a sense. It's just not like with body morphing and things like, you know, that kind of side of like integrating huge amounts of technology into us. We're going to be a new human in a way of still being fully human. Okay. All right. We have truth, honor, empress, and integrity. This is what I kind of said before. This is, what does this say? That which is true will always that which is true will always be enough. That's exactly right. Truth is so important. Truth to ourselves, truth to people, getting and gaining the truth. That is always going to be it. Sorry, the music just stopped. The music I was listening to was called Blessings of Hope. Handpan music. This one's called Blossom. Just clicked on whatever's up there. And liberation, free spirit, wild and authentic. Yeah, this divine rebel. We might even see a world that's completely different. Some of the structures that are there now are going to potentially go away. I don't think it's going to be fully that, but maybe some countries start to separate in a way, but more peacefully. You know how Czechoslovakia was together and it was Czechoslovakia and then it split to Slovakia and the Czech Republic, right? Or Czechia, which I think is more common now. So that didn't go through necessarily a war. There was kind of some kind of agreement. I don't know the full details, but I know that things that change don't always have to be in the way that we've seen in the past. Whereas like borders and all that kind of stuff in the old days was wars, right? War. This is not war. Liberation does not need war. You can see that with like Gandhi. To get a point across, he didn't have to fight. He didn't have to, or he fought in his own way, but he didn't have to grab a gun and start shooting people, right? That would be wild. But anyway, this is where this is coming through. And it just says, just let me be. This is so true, especially now with some of the laws that are coming through, especially against like trans people, you know, all that kind of thing. Some of these people just want to be left the fuck alone. So, you know, that kind of thing's popping in. But that might be just my own ego wanting to talk about that. But regardless, you know, it's still true. So liberation and truth, the truth will set you free is coming through as well, which, you know, if you follow certain verses and stuff in the Bible, that is very true. The truth will set you free. And you've got to be honest with yourself. Trust in your own inner wisdom too. There's part of this, which kind of coincides with the last reading, that this path does have points of being lonely. And I see that more in the point of like not having, it's not the case of not having anyone around, but it's more in the case of your ideas may not resonate with the people that you feel it should. You'll be able to find people that will resonate with it. So certain people might start to shift and be gone from your life as well. Don't be afraid of that. That could have been because your connection contract has completed. You've done exactly what you needed to do there. Learned what you've needed to learn. So don't be afraid. Can't hide from it because either path has a similar kind of tale with regards to that. Yeah, and coming back to the wounded child, there's going to be a lot of releasing to set you free. Dealing with stuff internally and, you know, as a collective, all dealing with our own shadows and our own stuff that we've held on to. So it's going to be a very emotional path, I feel, compared to the other, but still just as like two sides of the same coin, essentially. Okie dokie. We've got the Nine of Cups, very nice, and Judgment. Yeah, understanding the connection between all things, right? spirit rising as well, understanding the real nature of your higher self, not seeing it as like the perfect being that knows all. Seeing still that, but seeing it more as like an extension of who you are rather than who you were in the past, like a past life. You found out your past life was like Jesus or something, right? That doesn't matter to this life. It doesn't, unless there's some kind of contractual thing where you needed to know that. I would say most people that believe that, you know, it may not have actually been. It doesn't matter anyway whether it was or not, but this is like, my point is getting to a point of understanding who you are within this body in this moment and how you want to express yourself freely in this lifetime, right? So it's being very authentic and free. You know, this is like leaps of joy too, all these gifts, all this like treasure type thing, and it's really like fulfillment, true real fulfillment coming through here. Even though it's showing riches, right, like gems and stuff, he's not really like, he's excited about it, it feels like, but that fulfillment isn't coming from this, it's coming from an expectation or a desire met or fulfilled. This is just like the bonus, the little treasure. And being right next to here, it's like spiritual fulfillment or soul fulfillment. You've got the King of Cups. This came out on last pile as well. Again, King of Cups, like whether they're in their spirit or whether they're in like the more materialistic way, still a great person, someone who's dependable, loyal, and connected, right? Or stable. They still have that strength of like the masculine, and then they can comprehend or connect with the spirit. So there's like this beautiful connection, it feels, within yourself. Because you can see here he's tapping on the sound bowl, which is interesting because I'm listening to this handpan music. It's not the same, but you know, sound waves, and it's attracting what's around him. So being able to really manifest things very quickly and easily. This might sound kind of sci-fi, but even like what we before in the past, what we might have manifest might be like, I want this man or this woman or this like car or something like that. This is kind of like getting that, but when we're advanced, like we've gone through the advanced kind of like mint of it, we're not manifesting for our own greed, we're manifesting for the collective. And we understand that we all are manifesting depending on what the whole collective are focusing in on. If everyone turned off the news, it'd be so interesting to see what manifests. If we all watch like that Good News girl, I don't know if you've seen her, but she just puts up positive stuff for a day and see how the world shifts, even if it's slightly. I don't doubt that it will ever happen, but it's just like, imagine being able to do that and see what happens. So that feels like this. It's like that's going to happen in a sense. Because why would we want to hurt other people or even ourselves when we're all connected? It's like that understanding. Why would you want to hurt the person who even hurt you in the past or left you in the past, right? They broke up with you, when they're an extension of you and you're an extension of them. So it's like getting into that real point of seeing that instead of just talking about it like in a reading, right? This is like really feeling it. I've got the Two of Swords. Interesting card coming to liberation. There's still going to be tests and trials on this path. It's not going to be just like everything easy. Like she's got blindfolded, she's not seeing the full story, right? Whether she's put that on herself or not, whether she's put like something over her eyes or not, but a lot of noise. So there's this one point of this is an idea of, do I do this or not? What feels right to me might be the hard path, right? To speak truth might be very challenging in certain countries, in certain situations, in certain places. And that's on one side, and the other side is like, I don't know if I can make certain decisions that are going to liberate me and be true and honest to myself and actually get me to where I want to be, but I don't know if I can do that. So there's still going to be that challenge of decision making. We've got the Lovers card here too. I like that next to Judgment as well, because Judgment traditionally in my mind, like I know it's people coming out of the ground because they're like rebirth, like very religious-y style of judgment, right? going to a better place. This isn't someone else taking us there, though. As you can see here in this more modern version, she's extended herself, like she's connected with herself to get to the heaven, let's say, or the higher realm. And because it's next to judgment, it's like seeing the past for what it was, seeing the decisions were made. Like this is a choice card, the Lover's card, and same with the Two of Swords is a decision card, right? Sometimes the decisions are two choices that don't always feel good or feel right, but it needs to be made because staying stagnant is just not going to work for this path. If you've come to this path because you want things to be slow and because you're scared of the speed, reevaluate. You may still pick the same path, but just know that there's going to be points where you're going to have to make choices that are going to test like your mind. But if you follow your, let's say, heart, I know it's a bit cheesy, but like if you follow your heart, it's going to be what's right for you. Also, you know, could come up with like interesting new connections in the future on this path as well. And lastly, we've got the Seven of Swords. This is so interesting because straight away it felt like fighting back against the darkness. And I don't feel like that's necessarily actually, there's all this darkness around where you have to fight. But it does feel like going into stealth mode, being very connected and still having to or wanting to make differences and changes to the world. I thought this was going to be more focusing in on like planting in nature and that kind of stuff. There was that, especially with the first one. But this divine rebel, right, ending with the Seven of Swords, this kind of feels like a little bit of a rebel. And we could see rebels as like negative beings, like, you know, like at the moment it would be a lot of people think or feel that like Hamas is doing horrible things and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm not talking about that kind of rebel. More talking to rebels like Robin Hood, for example, right? Robin Hood or something like that, where it's like taking from the rich and giving to the poor. I don't think it would be in that kind of level or way, but even imagine this scenario where people are so reliant on the government for support on this, or like they should have done this, they should do this, they should like have better regulations for childcare and all this other stuff, right? This is going away from that instead of relying on this to make the decisions for me so that I can work in this environment. I'm going to start taking the power back, and someone comes in and teaches me how to do that, teaches me how to plant my own food, teaches me how to like, you know, work on my emotions and that kind of thing. You know, there's like life coaches, but real life coaches, not just life coaches in the sense of how do I get better to get this money, right? Instead of that, it's more like how do I become more sovereign and independent in my own life? Because we've given our power away so much that now if like someone falls over this, that, or the other, going to blame the government for it, right? We're going to blame this, this. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. If you really want to go down that path, go for it. But when have we decided to give away our power over to that kind of overarching theme, right? Overarching power. Why have we given all our stuff away? It's okay to give like certain things, right? Maintain roads, whatever. But like, why have we given our own sovereignty over? That's going to be what this path is going to get you to rediscover the truth in yourself, liberating, letting yourself be free, trusting your own wisdom, not just someone who has a degree in whatever. I mean, you know, you can listen to it, but it doesn't mean that they're always going to be right? Just because they've studied something doesn't mean they know everything about it. And it kind of pains me a little bit to say because, like, I don't want people to go out there and go, okay, I'm not going to trust anything that anyone says. Like, experts are experts and take it in, but how do you, like, when you take in information, how do you feel about it? What does it trigger within you? Does it trigger you something that's super negative when it's not trying to be? Because maybe that's talking to some kind of wound, right? Does it trigger something that just doesn't feel right, but you can't put your finger on it? Investigate that, look into it. Maybe there's more information you need to know about it, or maybe it's coming across in a way that's not easy to digest, right? And so when you research it, you get more understanding of where they're coming from and the messages that are coming through. So it does feel like a fun way, but they're not talking too much about over community and that kind of stuff, which I thought this was going to be more. I think that's probably still in there in some ways, but both sides are really talking about authenticity and making decisions. This just feels more ease, right? It feels like winds coming through in time, slowly, more connected with self and nature, more understanding our soul and our spirit, more understanding our heart space too, and getting to where we need to get to in time. It is like the slow path, but it's also the one where you get less harassed. It feels like for some reason it's like one where you get less targeted or noticed. There's like that stealth energy, right? Which is sometimes good for some people, especially if you're a hermit and you like hermiting. This is going to be a good path for you, but what's a real good path for you is one that you decide in your own sovereign self, because you can't talk about truth, liberation, and sovereignty while saying you should pick this or that or the other, right? That's hypocrisy, which is an interesting space and a word for the world at the moment. In some parts, people say certain things, do certain things, blame certain things, and it's, if they look in the mirror, they see that they made those decisions. They chose that. They wrote up that particular law, right, or whatever, or in their house or in the government or whatever, you know, all that stuff. So yeah, when there's like facts and figures and things that we can see, it's funny when, you know, the truth comes out. So yeah, interesting path. It's going to be very much still in the technology, but getting back our own power. This is, the overarching theme is getting back our own power. So I think I've talked enough, so I'm going to leave that there. This is a very long reading, both of them. But hopefully you've enjoyed. If you haven't watched the first one, maybe you just want to see what that looks like if you have time or if you're interested. If not, perfectly fine. Feel free to like this video and comment if you have enjoyed it and you have anything to say. Otherwise, I'm going to leave that there. Just look after yourself, take care, and I'll see you next time.